Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Parker Emerald, and this is a special 2-year anniversary edition of the Conversation Station. Today's guest is a dynamic and accomplished serial entrepreneur and investor based in Sacramento. With over 15 years of experience in sales and business development, he has proven himself as a passionate and creative executive who can design and implement successful strategies for enhanced performance and increased revenue. He is CEO of Ferrell Digital Production, where he showcases his expertise in business operations, branding, content creation, and digital solutions. As a leader, mentor, and team player, he is committed to empowering entrepreneurship, strategic planning, and effective team building. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Rodney Ferrell. Welcome on, sir.
Woo-hoo! What's up, Parker? Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'm taking that on the road. That is incredible. That was an incredible intro. Of course, I have to throw it back to you being on the second anniversary. It's incredible to watch you elevate this podcast and really take it by storm and have so many successful individuals on this show in a short period of time, man. So it's an honor. Congratulations. And let's make it happen, man. Let's do this.
Yeah. And I'm excited. It's very interesting how these things kind of happen because it was very started on a whim. It was like right around Thanksgiving 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was like just we were walking in downtown talking about like the idea, and you're like, let's shoot an episode, and then it happened, and then I released the episode, and that was so quick. It was like 3 days from the idea to the episode.
Yes.
But then what happened later is like last year we had the episode scheduled intentionally, but this time yesterday is when we decided to shoot today. So I'm excited. This is coming out tomorrow. So
let's go.
But it's exciting. I'm excited to be here. I'm also excited to do an in-person episode with you because like we have so many in-person interactions.
Exactly.
But our episodes have always been, through a screen, and there's a different experience when you're going through a screen as opposed to being in person and bumping the microphone.
It is. Shout out to Import Studios is where we're at right now. So that's lovely that we're in this space and being able to kind of be live and make it happen. And share some thoughts. Let's get it.
I guess my first question for you is just kind of as we hit this new chapter in the entrepreneurial game, as things scale up, what for you and what would the key you'd give to other entrepreneurs hitting these new phases? What do they need to keep in mind as things grow exponentially? Because it can really at times feel like too much. So how do you go about making sure that you are able to execute at a high level on a daily basis?
Beautiful. In terms of every time you go to a new level, I would say any aspect of life is going to stretch you because that's what growth is. You're traveling to an unknown space, and within that unknown space is going to be uncertainties, and those uncertainties are uncomfortable, and being uncomfortable is the space that you need to be in to actually assist you in the process of what you need to do to expand. That means expanding your mind. So first and foremost, consistently be a student of learning, because every time you go to a new level, it's kind of like being a freshman all over again. If you look at the analogy of school, right? So you go from, man, I'm a senior at this level, to now you got to go back to being a freshman again. So you got to put that learner cap on and engage of the concept of being an intern at that level. So I would say being a student, handling your mind expansion, and evaluating. The next thing I would say you got to evaluate is you got to evaluate your team. You got to evaluate where you guys are at as a whole in terms of your communication, in terms of how you're handling business systems and things of that nature. So it's always an expansion aspect. But in order to handle it, I would say keep your sights and keep your vision on the space of where you want to be, because that will help you handle that process of learning.
Yeah. And I think it's important to, especially with the learning side of things, because it's so easy to get caught up in, when you feel like you're up leveling, when you feel like you're going places, you're like, yeah. And then you hit that next step where every time you hit a next step, it's new territory. And so it's almost going back to that, like, you had to do something to get to where you are. So you almost need to go back to the mindset you had when you were first starting, which is that I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a mindset to go into life, any new scenario, any of these things. But it's really easy to get lost within your mind, even of who you are and how you're supposed to approach things, because there is no manual.
No. You're creating it. You can only connect the dots going backwards. You can't connect the dots going forward, right? You're traveling to an unknown, and it's a vision that you see, and you're saying, I'm going to pull the future into my reality, which means I have to jump into the faith mindset, right? So I have to have belief that everything that I envision is going to turn into a reality, and that comes down to you having belief within yourself, so then that way you have enough juice and gas to execute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in this entire entrepreneur space, I'm curious, because you've worked with so many people and have been in this industry for a while at this point. Has there been a consistent factor, to the success of entrepreneurs, or something that you've seen across all of them that you don't see in the average entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I would say traits, right? It really is. There's a lot of things that I would say, but I'll break it down to a few. It's hunger, right? You got to be extremely hungry on a consistent basis. Like if you're not hungry, you're not going to have that drive and that motivation to really do what it takes, because it's very difficult to, again, identify a vision, stick to it amongst all the doubt around you. I would say commitment, right? You got to be committed. You have to be okay with no's, because everything is a no initially. Even a good idea is a no initially. The internet was a no initially, and now it's a brilliant idea, right? Every single aspect, if you think about ideas that came from a future perspective, was initially a no, but someone had to be committed to that idea. So you got to be committed to that idea and really be strong enough to push through the naysayers that a lot of times come from within your own close network. So the commitment's got to be there, discipline, dedication, and I would say extreme amounts of faith. And faith is something you can develop, and you develop faith through study. So I think your attitude towards studying and learning is vitally important in the game. And those are some of the traits that I've noticed with founders and entrepreneurs who consistently seem to excel at whatever they put their hands on.
Yeah. And I blanked out. I had a question as you were talking, but I blanked for a second there. But I think this, for me, as I've been coming into this entrepreneurship game, right? Yeah. It's been interesting to watch how different businesses conduct themselves. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's the leader in that environment that really determines how that thing is ran. But my question, I remembered it. It was about the naysayers, Okay. Because often the naysayers, they might not even say it out loud, right? Yeah. But they can very easily, by their actions, by the way they show themselves to you, can very easily get into your head at times. So how do you navigate that? And how does one go about navigating the naysayers per se, so that it doesn't affect the mindset and the things around that, so that you can still perform? Because it's a very interesting thing to navigate as a whole.
Oh, 100%. How to navigate the naysayers. That's I don't know if that's a book yet, but that could be a really good book idea, because you definitely have to do that. And I would say at every single level, you have to navigate the naysayers. Some of the, best practices in order to navigate the naysayers is spend more time focusing on what you want opposed to what they want. At the end of the day, you have to take control of your own mind, and you have to take control of what you consume. Because if I decide what someone says is more valuable than my opinion about myself, then I'm giving them control of my vision. The vision was given to me, right? It wasn't given to them. So they're not going to necessarily understand the true why behind my actions, the true why behind me staying up at 2:00 in the morning. It's not going to make any sense to them. It's not supposed to. right? Because it's my vision. I was blessed with that vision. So in order to navigate the naysayers, you have to put yourself in a position to just let it go. You gotta let other people's opinions go and understand that everyone has them. And I would say, like, when I get information or intel, it's okay to hear it, right? Hear it, take it down. That's great. Assess it. Mull it around, but don't make that the most important thing to knock you off of your vision, right? You have to really ask yourself, if I really want to be here and really want to get to this goal, and that's also another thing that I see most successful founders have. They have the ability to eliminate that, to like kill the noise on both sides, right? Eliminate the noise when someone is giving you extreme compliments, and eliminate the noise when someone talking bad about you, because both are going to come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's really good.
I think it does come down to understanding that the extremes are the extremes, so that you can, bring it back to here. Because you're going to always, if you're doing something right, you're going to have the people telling you that you're the best thing in the world, and the people telling you that you're the worst thing in the world. Now, whatever you believe about you is what's the most important at the end of the day, because in a lot of scenarios you're not going to be the best in the world, and a lot of the time you're not the worst in the world. Bro, so it's listen, like it's in between.
Listen. The fastest, not that guy. The tallest, not that guy, right? the dopest in school in terms of grades, not that guy, right? But what I learned is how to improve the yesterday version of myself. So then I realized, like, wait a minute, it's not about anyone else. It's about me, the person that I see in the mirror when I wake up, and the decisions I make, and realizing if I want to improve who I was yesterday, that's up to me. It's not up to anybody on the outside that I don't see and I don't know, and a person online. Like, yeah, it's up to me.
Yeah.
It's not up to them. Yeah, they're not going to, even if they did, if they work out and eat right, or eat whatever they telling me to eat, it doesn't make me none. Meaning I can't get fit based on their push-ups or activity. So I got to let their decisions and actions be that way and focus on what I need to do.
Yeah, and I like that, and I think a lot of it does come down to internally. I mean, obviously there are external factors that people are going to help you, people are going to hurt you, but I like to bring it back to the Matthew McConaughey quote that is, my hero is me in 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, however many years, because realistically, that's the only person that understands what it takes to get you from here to where they are, right? Exactly. Like, nobody else is going to understand. People are going to have insights. People are going to have advice, but the only person that knows is the person that's been on the journey. And I think that's something interesting in, like, the entire education side of things, where learning from the people that have walked the path can often be a much more valuable education than anything else, because if you're going down this path, then there are people that are 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and they understand things that you don't right now. Obviously, you 10 years down the road is going to have a better understanding of what you need right now, but if you have 10 people that are all 10 years ahead of you in different verticals, hearing from them is going to help you turn that 10-year away version from yourself into a 7-year, into a 5-year, into a 1 year. You know?
You got it. Mindset quantum leaps. That's what I call it. That's a great point. And I basically look at the collection of wisdom from a perspective of being a wisdom collector and being very intentional with where you consume your information from, right? Knowing that there's going to be a world of naysayers, but how can I identify tour guides of wisdom, people who've been where I want to go, instead of listening to people who have never ever been there. Hey man, don't go to Africa, man. Listen, what I heard and what I read online, and I checked out the news, and every time I look at the news, there's something super negative about that. That's interesting. Have you ever been there? No. Great. I'm going to talk to the 10 people that I know who's actually been there and been to those specific countries and understand exactly how to navigate. Because listening to you is going to get me exactly what you're receiving right now, which is absolutely nothing of the action of being where I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, you're the product of the people you spend the most time around. But I think that factor of the people you spend the most time around has changed infinitely in the last decade. Because now you have this here, this phone. And so it's not the 10 people that you're around physically. It's who are you putting in your network? Who are you talking to on a daily basis? But with the amount of time we spend scrolling on our phones, who are you watching? What are you listening to? Who is in your mind? Who are you letting in? Because you are letting people into the door, into your mind, into you. You are giving people the opportunity to change who you are. So you have to be intentional about who you let in. I mean, I'm not going to let some random guy I just met 3 seconds ago into my mind, but it's easy to do that when you're scrolling and you see one video from someone you've never seen before, and it can either really piss you off or something like that, but you let them in. You don't know them. They don't know you. Realistically, you're just a number to them in a lot of these scenarios. You're the 1001st view. You're not, who you are. So I think a lot of the time, and it's one of those interesting things with internet hate comments. It's like, don't let people come in, because to me, when I see a hate comment on one of my pieces of content, I'm like, there's the reason I wouldn't leave a hate comment like that is because I have better things to do. I have better things to do with my time. Yeah. So then to sit there and write 7 paragraphs on why the 1-minute video I just watched is wrong.
That's a really, really good point. And there's a couple of things on there I wanted to share. And one of the things is, like, if guarding your mind is one of the most important things you can do. And most people think about it. If you just wake up and you jump into social, instantly, like you said, the door to let people in is wide open today. And it's like a waterfall of ideas and things and other consciousness and other ideas and opinions that you're running through. So you're going through an emotional process immediately, and you're not even controlling what you think about initially. So now I'm pissed off about someone that I don't even know. I'm not connected to them. They don't even live where I live. And they made a comment about something that I disagree with. So now I am in a mental funk, and I've literally have given them the remote control of my emotion. And now that person is leading me, which is wild, right? Opposed to say, let me guard the door of my mind, close it off first. Let me control my vision, visualize where I need to be and what I need to do so I can take ownership. And if you do that, you're absolutely right. You realize when you start really taking ownership of your mind on a consistent basis, you actually realize you don't really have any time to be worried about what anybody else thinks about you. I can't even, it's so much stuff going on, like to think about, to organize, to structure. I can't even do it. I can't even give somebody that space because I don't have it. So, take ownership.
Yeah, it is very interesting because it is like when you have everything else going on, it's like, and I think that goes for a lot of things, because people talk about, getting rid of some of these bad habits to get to some of these places. But one of the biggest things that's not mentioned is sometimes the thing you need is for that thing that you're putting off to get thrown on you, but 7 times whatever it was, so you no longer have time for that thing. Yep. And that's one of the strongest habit breakers nobody talks about, is just not having time for it.
Yeah, right. I gotta put something else in place of that, and then boom.
Yeah, and so sometimes, like, and one of the interesting things I've noticed is I feel busier when I'm doing less. like that sounds ridiculous, but in practice, when I'm attacking something on a daily basis and I'm going, I don't have the downtime, that the voided time, which is what makes me feel busy, because I'm less efficient, because I'm not doing as much. It feels like I'm busier because there's less going on in my life. Yeah. It's a very interesting thing.
It's less order. When you're focused and you're in the flow, right? It's like magic working. But when you're, scattered and there's miscellaneous things that occur, that's what ends up happening. Yeah, makes sense, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just think that there's so many interesting things that, like, when you mentioned quantum leaps earlier, it brought me back to a podcast episode I did back in September, which was about the quantum leaps of life, about how you'll be on this path, and a lot of times we look at these things like a linear progression, and in a perfect world it would be. But if you look at like working out or any of these things, it's not. But just life in general, it's like that. You'll be doing the same thing every day at this level, and then you'll wake up one day and things will happen and you'll be doing it at this level, and it'll happen like that, and you're just forced to step up your game.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down, there are quantum leaps in every aspect. Business is obviously huge quantum leaps. You just, you go from one thing to the next. And the interesting thing, though, the hardest thing to navigate is whenever a quantum leap occurs, you have, within a certain amount, depending on how big the leap is, within a certain amount of time, you are adjusting to that leap. But the hardest part about business is the wait in between leaps, because the leaps are exciting. You've got things going, boom, boom, boom. But then when the leaps aren't happening, it's like, what do you do? Right? Because you're just sitting here like, hello, I'm waiting for my leap. Help me out here. And it's a very interesting thing to navigate of, what do I do when the things when the next step hasn't hit? Obviously, you have to put in the work to hit that next step on a consistent basis. But when you are doing that, that's why, like, a lot of people quit the gym, because they don't see, you're not going to see those returns immediately.
Yeah.
It's delayed gratification.
Yeah,
it's a very hard skill to master.
For sure. So it's two things that that assist me in that process of doing the best to master that is, one, constantly keeping your vision in front of you, right? So you can constantly see it and be there in that space. And then then the second part is, you got to know how to turn yourself on, right? So, like, for me, the way I do it is, I gotta inspire myself in the morning. So, one, I'm not grabbing my phone immediately. I'm taking my time to own my mind, do a little meditation, and then I'm jumping on YouTube University, and I'm identifying with intention who I need to listen to, because I just listen to myself to see where I'm at in the space. Right. So is it spiritual wisdom? Is it, I need to hit some Eric Thomas to get, like, really riled up? Like, what kind of goal am I going to attack today? And what kind of coach do I need to guide me? Right. Where is it at? Right. Is it a spiritual coach? Like, where is it at? So that is why studying and learning is so valuable, because you know what frequency you need at that moment of time. But you don't get to that point unless you take the time to learn yourself and learn who you are. That's why self-awareness is so valuable in the game of building your visions and turning them into reality. Right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of that, and I think it can't be overstated how difficult that mastery is of, like, understanding how to get yourself right. And I want to thank that train for coming through and giving us a little bit of a background track. But it's a very interesting thing, mastering these things, and I'm certainly still figuring out how the heck to do a lot of it. And the interesting thing is, like you always say, when you're in the flow, you're in the flow, and there is a lot of flow to that, because sometimes you need 10 times more intentionality, and sometimes the thing you've been doing for X amount of time doesn't work that day.
Exactly.
So you have to adapt.
Exactly.
So you obviously need a framework, but you also have to have the understanding that it's going to evolve. That there are going to be changes on a daily basis. You're going to be like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's try this. So there has to be that understanding in order for you to know how to operate properly.
Right. You're in control of the action part. You're not necessarily control over the reaping part, the part that comes back out of, the farmer, right? The farmer doesn't, stick her hand in the ground and be like, pull up, you tree. Like, nah, like, that's not how it works. We do our part, right? Mother Nature does her part. And then that's where the faith comes into play. You have to understand you're not participating out here alone, right? We didn't put the whole universe together. Like, no, you're not participating alone out here. Each of us needs all of us. So understand how it all works, but understand how your own personal internal universe works so you can really participate in this game called life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the most important thing, right? And I think there are a lot of very easy parallels to be like, if you don't understand your own universe, what are you doing trying to understand the rest of it? Because, like, I mean, I think a football player who just gets to a new team, they're not focused on understanding what the other teams are all doing across the league right now.
Right.
They're not. They're focused on
point.
first understanding what is the system within this.
Yep.
What is
exactly.
the system here within this organization? And I think that's why you have to understand your mental universe, because then when you get into a new organization, you have to understand the organizational universe, and that goes a lot for sales and
That's right.
and getting
Good
new
point.
clients, because you have to understand what is each person within that. You have to have an understanding of every person within the organization's internal universe, but then you have to understand. You have to understand the organization as a whole, and then you have to understand the universe that is their specific industry. And so, but how do you expect to have a good understanding of that if you can't first master your own universe?
You got it. Yeah. Yeah, it's two jobs. I think it's two important jobs. It's internal work and external work. And that's a great point you made in the analogy in terms of football. Like the internal side gets you on the team, right? The external side helps you win the game, right? Because then that means I have to work collectively, collaboratively with a team. I have to be in position. I have to be in the right position to execute, to make sure when it's time to play and we say hike, I run my route, or I do what I'm supposed to be doing, which helps the entire team.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think the big thing is, like, with that, it's like you can understand the external things, but don't try to learn what the rest of the league is doing before you're on the team.
You got it.
You can have an understanding of general things, the base level, but you need to be on that. You need to have an understanding of the team, right? And you have to understand that in order to be successful in a lot of these verticals, because there is so much competing noise for your attention. Not necessarily the internet is where that is really used a lot, but it's not even just there. It's like everywhere in your life. You know, you got 70 texts coming in at once. You've got 3 people who want help on something, one of them who might be worth your time, and then you have like 6 other people who all want help, and it's a lot to navigate, and so you have to be able to navigate yourself first. I mean, that was my theme throughout all of September when I was doing the daily episodes. It was understand yourself. This is advice. Advice is not what you need to do right now, because I don't know what you need to do right now.
Yeah.
It would be ridiculous for me to come out here and say, hey, Rod, I know exactly what you need at this exact moment. But it's certainly interesting. Like right now, I don't know what you need, but I know I could use some water. But like...
Note taken. No. H2O. We're talking about the universe and things like that. So yeah, H2O is a great point. But yeah, no, it's incredible, man. It's incredible to be here, to be in the spot, talking about this, taking a vision and turn it into a reality so quickly and executing. And now we're 2 years into the game and still serving, communicating. And now, kudos, you're taking what you did over the 2 years, and now there's other individuals who desire the exact same thing. And to me, that is an example of exactly what we're talking about. If I fuel and serve myself, I have more to give. You fueled and serve yourself. Now you have a wisdom system that you have the ability to give and contribute, and so on and so forth. And that's the beautiful part about life. The more you grow, the more you can contribute. Right?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because the serving yourself, right? Because a lot of times when we say understand your universe, people think that that's doing, that's all internal, but you still have to engage with the external world. And,
for sure.
And you also need to like try things, right? Because you're going to get in all likelihood, you're going to get a better understanding of what you don't want to do before you know what you do want to do. So try things, right? Go see what you enjoy. But I think for me, it was like when you're inspired by an idea, just take action on it. And if it fizzles out, okay, but still take action. Yeah. The amount of times that this podcast has fizzled out, it's fizzled out like 7 times in 2 years. So, I mean, It's like
Man.
just keep executing, keep coming back around and keep pushing, because just sitting there waiting for things to happen, nothing, no opportunities are going to come your way if you're not taking action. But just have the baseline understanding of, does this action align, or does this action lead to a place that aligns?
Yeah. By doing it, you'll find out exactly what you need to find out. Whether you need to continue doing it or whether you should not. So there's no, you know what I mean? There's, indecision and non-action is a waste, I would say. And in order to live, you must take action and live and explore and execute and grow and learn. So, man, it's wonderful, man. Incredible for you to be in this spot, in this position, such early age, man. It's really an honor for us to be working together, to watch your growth and be rocking together for so long, right? And now we get to look at projects and look at founders and entrepreneurs and people with ideas and see how we can serve them. And by going through this process, you have an understanding of what they're going through, where they're at, you can really feel where they're coming from, but that means you can educate and train and assist and add value. So that's it. As long as you keep doing that in life, that you got the winning ticket.
Yeah, and I think it does come back to like the action taking, because it's like I wouldn't be able to help them if I didn't have an idea of their path, have an idea of the struggles, have an idea of the execution, right?
Yeah.
I think that's been one of the interesting things, is running it as a one-man show, right? Mm-hmm. So I've been the producer, the script writer, the salesperson. So all of the things
assistant.
I've been all of it. And so it's like when I go in and I get to be in one or two roles for this organization, I'm like, okay, here's what you're going to need here. Here's where you're going to need help there. In 2 weeks, you're going to call me asking about that.
You got it.
So it's like you have to have an understanding of what the journey looks like before you can walk people down it. Obviously, you can fake it till you make it, but at some point, you do actually have to make it, or else people will realize you're faking it.
You do got to do it. Yeah, for sure. And that's awesome. That's what makes this dope, is because we are not only the, from a positioning standpoint of just the professor, you're the TA and you're the student always. Yeah. So it gives you the ability to understand all aspects of the game. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's always exciting to see how things flow.
Yeah.
But I guess my question here would be, what like in the last, let's say, in the last year, what has been the biggest lesson you learned that was a mental unlock or a quantum leap, however you want to put it? What has that biggest thing been?
Biggest thing currently, and I think it just recently hit me again, and most things are a cycle. Most things, you may have gotten hit with it 10 years ago or 5 years ago or a year ago. Certain things will, they'll come back because it's part of the learning process. I would say the biggest thing is wealth is a mindset. So don't be in a position where you let the external dictate where you're at. So life is I believe that we are all born rich, right? So that decision comes before the dollars in your account. So in order to be free, you have to make that commitment now. It's not when something outside of you occurs, right? So for me, within this year, the most important thing that I learned is make that decision every day. Now is the time where you're wealthy. It's not this outside event. It's now. And then in the now, you are in the same frequency as that moment you want to be in. So now is the only time that exists. The future doesn't exist yet. So in order for you to travel into the future with wealth, you have to make a decision now. So if you do that, then the worry goes away. The fear goes away. So that recycling that aspect, that has been the thing that's been really, really loud this year.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to take from that, and just, you you are rich now in so many ways, and I think it does a lot come down to the way you think about it, right?
100%.
So
100%.
if I'm thinking about it from the 10 years down the road, blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna execute, and then I'll get 10 years down the road, and I'll be in the same spot I was because I kept looking 10 years down the road. But if I can understand where I want to be 10 years down the road, but understand that how can I get where I want to be 10 years down the road now? And not in a physical sense, because there are going to be things that are going to take time, but mentally and emotionally, and just on the frequency of thinking like someone who's there. So finding those people that are where you want to go and learning as much about how they operate, how they think. Well, because then you do begin to get to the point where you are in the jet while everybody's down speed walking. Even they're trying their best, but speed walking isn't always going to work. And so I think that's a lot of what it comes down to, is putting in the time, and but understanding other people have put in the time. So understanding this person's in. I also think we can categorize it in what vertical is this person where you want to be. If there are going to be people that are there in a lot of the verticals, and there are going to be people that are there in one. And so you're going to have to go, and you're going to have to look and be like, okay, this is how this person operates in this vertical, and that's part of where I want to be. So let's go through, let's break down how they operate. Let's schedule a podcast with them to learn how they operate, and then let's go, right? I think one of my favorite quotes of from a guest by the name of Travis Chappelle, who runs a podcast. He's talked to Grant Cardone, Shaq, anybody you can think of, Patrick Bet-David, every name under the sun he's had a conversation with. And what he said is this: the podcast is just the Trojan horse to get to speak to people I'd never have the opportunity to speak to otherwise. And so it's like, if you want to learn from someone, start a podcast. If you want to share content with the world, start a podcast. If you want to learn something, start a podcast. If you want to get better at using technology, start a podcast. And so I think there's a lot of these, and I do bring it back to podcasting because it's, we're on the 2-year special. But like,
shout out to that, baby.
Understanding that there is so much more to a podcast than just the finished product, or or the views or whatever it is. There's so much more to it. It's really a conversation starter, because you could have a meeting with someone, or you could have a meeting with them on your podcast. and like there's a difference there, but there's no difference there. You're still having a conversation.
Still having a conversation. You still got to do this anyway. Welcome to the conversation station.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Amazing. This is dope.
Yeah. But it's certainly been interesting over the last couple of years to be like how it's evolved, like, right? How the podcast has evolved. I'll say this. Let's think here. So when I started, right? If you guys go back and listen to that first episode, it's actually still the most viewed episode of the podcast, I think. Or I think one episode might have passed it recently. But the graphics are so comedic to me. I'm like, oh, that branding. But so the first 2 episodes, terrible branding. Setups have changed like 7 times. In fact, this is the first time anyone's seen this setup. So it's like it all changes, it all evolves. Yeah. But it's that evolution, right? So if I wasn't podcasting, if I wasn't talking to people, the lessons I get from having those one-on-one conversations, even if it's someone I'm never going to end up talking to again, right? Even if that's what it is, that one conversation is so valuable, especially when you're intentional with who you're talking to and you're intentional about these things. It all comes back together, right? You're sending things out in all sorts of different directions when you podcast, but it all comes back, and that's on the internal side of things. Yeah. Because externally, this could get 4 views, and that's not what matters. It's the conversation. It's the understanding.
You got it.
It's the fact that you are growing a connection with the person you're talking to that matters, right? Like, at the end of the day, that's what matters. I mean, we don't go hang out with people for, for the fact that, we like their shoes. Right, I'm being realistic.
Some people do.
Well, so, yeah, I was gonna say
I like shoes,
and what I was gonna say is we don't go hang out with people just to get social media clout. But I'm like, some people do.
Nowadays probably a lot of people do.
These days, you never really know, man.
You never know. But I got a question for you though, real quick.
Okay.
What has been, because you've been on the horn in this podcast, Song and Dance, chatting with some amazing people. What are some of the most important things you've learned, or maybe the top one or two that,
That's a very good question. I think first off, I'll start it off with something funny. Make sure your headphones are plugged in. When you think you're having audio issues, check the headphones. Because
Something simple. Boom.
but I think the biggest thing is it is the success. We all have a fear that successful people are gonna look at us and laugh. But at the end of the day, the most successful people are the people that want to see you succeed. So get over that fear. Reach out to your heroes. Invite them on. Have that conversation. And some of the conversations are going to be better than others. Some of them are going to be more awkward than others. Sometimes you're going to love that conversation, but then see it in post and be like, ah. So sometimes it's not going to convey.
Yeah.
But what matters is the value you get from it and the understanding that you probably left a better impression on them than most people they'll meet, because of the fact that most people don't have a podcast. Most people don't put in some of the efforts that you're going to put in if you put in that effort. And so it's getting over the fear of the judgment, but not like the audience fear. The biggest way to get over the fear of judgment from your audience is by talking to the people and getting over the fear from them, because you understand that they want to see you succeed. And so you have the understanding that it doesn't matter. Your audience can judge you, but the people that have walked the path, the people that are successful, they want to see you get somewhere.
Yeah.
And so that's what's important. That's the lesson, is don't be afraid of your heroes.
Yeah.
Because your heroes aren't afraid of you.
That's a good one. Right on. Damn. Super proud, man. This is incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. I always enjoy these ones where we get to sit down.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
yeah.
we have so many conversations over the course of a year, but it's so funny. It's like the amount of times that I'll randomly hit Rod up like, hey, let's do a podcast sometime soon. He's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, let's do a podcast sometime soon. He's like, yeah.
A year later.
Well, exactly. It's all, I guess it's like a yearly thing.
We're a continuation of a conversation station, so
Yeah.
It's always on. We always on air.
Always on air. I mean, I'm always breathing air, but I mean, maybe if I get some like hover shoes, then I'll always be on air.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think it's just like it's been such a perspective shift, right?
Yeah.
Over a couple of years, to talk to people from all ends of the network and from different walks of life, and just be like, they're all people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're all people. And some of the time they're going to come on and you realize they are dead tired and they have no capacity for conversation. But guess what? They're people.
Right.
And so it's a perspective shift to understand the successful people are just people that happen to be successful.
Yeah.
There isn't a defining characteristic. There isn't a genetic trait that defines success. Unless you're a 7'7" basketball player who's an absolute freak athlete that just but that's besides the point. Right. The point is there is no success gene. And so understanding that they're all people that put in the work and that put in the effort.
You got it.
So shifting that mindset from they are successful people to they are people who are successful. It doesn't sound like much of a shift.
That's a good one.
But it is everything.
That's a good one. That's a good one. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. So I guess one of my questions for you is like, from throughout your business journey as a whole, right? You've done so many different businesses, but what has stood out the most as like what is over time, what have you discovered is your favorite way to impact people? Because there are so many ways to impact people as a business, right? So what has stood out as like, wow, that impacted them and that was amazing?
Yeah, I think just being a support mechanism to help somebody go from visualizing something that they want to do and then it turning into reality. Like that is one of the coolest things to ever experience or ever to see. To communicate a strategy, someone executes a strategy, and boom, we are inside of that strategy. Like right now, we are inside of a strategy that we discussed that didn't exist before. We went from talking about it, you visualizing about it and executing it, and then boom, we are in 2 years. This is and this is happening. You just told me you spoke to someone on your podcast that just got done speaking to Grant Cardone and Shaq and all these names, right?
Yeah.
So that means you're one person removed from probably anybody you want to connect with by way of making a decision to execute a medium called Conversation Station that is adding value to you and other people as well. So this is the coolest thing ever. That's what I would say is I'm consistently hungry to consistently do that, which is how can I be the bridge of prosperity for someone's idea to turn it into reality?
Yeah,
that's always the coolest thing.
And I think I've seen that as well. Just like walking that path and seeing the way that you've impacted people. It's like, yeah, that's the coolest part, right? Like, I don't care about, right? It's like, that's the part that's fun. It's like,
that's the thing.
Having someone come to you with like, I want to do this, and being like, okay, let's do it. And then seeing it be done. And it's like, even for me, it's like, hey, I had an idea for a podcast and I'm doing a podcast.
Doing a
right?
podcast. Like not just, this is a real thing. It's
and like I had the idea to do 30 podcasts in 30 days. I did 30 podcasts in 30 days.
What number are you on right now?
Right now we're in okay. So overall, like Conversation Station episodes where I sat down and talked with someone, we're right around. We're about to hit the 60 mark sometime soon.
Woo!
But then we have like 27, 28 episodes of me just sitting down and talking to the camera.
Let's do a live podcast on episode 100.
That would be sick.
I'm calling it out. Live podcast.
You know what I want to do on like episode 100 is I want to get I want to do like a 3-hour thing where I have like 3, 4, 5 of my top guests all come in, and maybe it's live, but either maybe at certain times a couple of them will be on, but it's like throughout the show different people are popping in and out, even if it's someone who only has 15 minutes available, but you fill 3 to 4 hours with just interview after interview after interview. It'd be sick.
Let's do it.
So I gotta get on that. I'm
there. I'm showing up, coming out the bathroom with a good comment. What?
Coming out the bathroom with a good comment.
It felt right. It felt right. It felt right.
That is a quote of all time. Coming out the bathroom with a comment. Okay. Yeah. So I guess that's the quote for the episode. That's like the title. Coming out the bathroom with a good comment. Parker and Rodney Ferrell.
Title that up right there. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
My man, congratulations. Thank you.
Yeah. Man, so I guess as we kind of wrap things up here, I guess what is the one thing that people should keep in mind going forward into the rest of their life? What is this one takeaway, or even if it's multiple, this key point? What do people need to understand to have a positive impact on their life?
The secret of living is giving. Get to giving. Get to giving, right? Fuel yourself and get to giving. It's funny, if you give to yourself, you realize that you have more to give. The more you give, the more you end up receiving, and then it becomes a cycle of life. No different than breathing. I can't hoard the air. I have to inhale and exhale. So I literally have to do that exact same thing in order to live. So if I just follow that process, I can meditate through life in a way that is freeing, in a way that is really what we all want to be and have a desire to be, which is to be able to be free and create and to utilize our higher levels of faculty. So that's what I would say. Keep giving. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, that's something you're always saying. And I think it's something that I've seen, right? It's like when you give, the return isn't going to be immediate. You're not going to give something to someone and then give you twice what you gave them tomorrow. But 3 years down the road, or however long, you're going to find yourself in a position that you wouldn't have been in if you hadn't given.
You got it.
And so because you don't have enough people knowing or reaching out to you, where can people find you online? I ask, hey, look,
Parker,
these are standard questions. Hey, where can people find you? Instagram, Facebook, Twitter?
Yeah, Instagram, Mr. Ferrell 4. I would say that is the spot that I hang out mostly at this moment of time. Rodney Ferrell on LinkedIn. Mr. Ferrell 1 on TikTok. That's where I hang out at. Or hit up Parker.
Oh yeah. Sure. Hey,
Yeah.
if you want to
Actually, for real, hit up Parker.
If you want to get in touch with Rod,
Yeah.
hit me up, and
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
I am the screener of conversation. It's like I'll give you a riddle. If you get it right, you get to talk to Rodney. Three birds in a tree, one falls out. How many are up there? Infinite, because we come from a mindset of abundance.
Let's go.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Oh, this was fun. This was fun.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations again.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on again.
For sure.
All right. Thank you guys at home for watching. I'm Parker Emerald. I've been talking to Rodney Ferrell. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been the 2-year special of the Conversation Station.